It do be thundering and lightning out there. It's a bit cringe if you ask me. You've read the title, so, you know, Deliver Us from Evil. Is it good? Is it bad? What's it about? And is it really a hilarious horror? Well, first of all, let's take a look at this vibe that I seem to be sparking for this for some reason. So, yep, being the scariest thing that there is. E-girls. Oh, the modern horror. How you suck. So, now I will preface this with telling you that I am no horror expert, and I keep my viewings palatable with, you know, good horror movies. But you know, every once in a while you have to sit down and watch a painstakingly long and predictable horror that will leave you crying with laughter as opposed to shaking with fear. May I introduce my latest conquest, Deliver Us from Evil, the 2014 feature horror film, and I emphasize horror because, like I'm about to tell you, it is not that scary, and it really should be labelled as a thriller, but you know, whatever gets that money in. It's directed by Scott Derrickson, known most notably for directing Doctor Strange and Sinister. Alright, so he has a few horror movies under his belt, according to IMDb, and he's able to book himself a Marvel movie, so I guess good for him. Good at directing, I hope. At least that's what I would suspect coming into this movie. The cast is also quite interesting, mixed up in an ensemble of recognisable faces that I can't really exactly figure out where I know them from, like Eric Bana, Olivia Munn, Sean Harris, Edgar Ramirez, and the reason I decided to watch this turd, Joel McHale. Like everyone else during this quarantine, Netflix has become my best friend, and the inclusion of Community onto their platform called for a rewatch over the course of 2 weeks, which is pretty long considering the fact that it's 6 seasons of 20-minute episodes, and I'm Generation Z, meaning that I grew up on Netflix binge viewing, but I really wanted to soak in the experience. Of course, the only way to relieve the pain of finishing a show like that is to go onto IMDb, look at the cast, showrunners and the writers and the directors, and watch everything else that they've done as well. My desperate attempt to keep the Community magic alive was this film. And was it worth it? Oh yes, it was, and I'll tell you why. Let me give you a short Wikipedia summary of the movie, just in case you haven't read the book that it's based on, which was based on this guy's actual real life. Let that sink in for a moment. Anyway, in the words of the Google description, Ralph, a police officer, teams up with Mendoza, an unconventional cleric, to combat immoral forces that are wreaking havoc in the Bronx, New York. So the film begins in this sort of buddy cop way, which is it's kind of strange for a horror movie to have like the trope of a buddy cop, but I guess that makes it special. You see Ralph and Butler, who are the two cops, flaunt their badassery in an assault charge that makes no sense why they would take it knowing that they're special ops, but here we are. Bana sticks to his real life counterpart's New York accent, and I assume mentality. I haven't read the book, so I can't be too sure on that. Whereas McHale decides to play this sort of smartass Alice in Chains t-shirt wearing version of himself, whose whole existence was intended, I guess, to be this novelty. You know, an interesting view of a cop, that to be fair. If he wasn't in the movie, I don't think I would have been able to get through the first 30 minutes of this film. But his character does come down to his Boston Red Sox cap. Alice in Chains. Boston Red Sox. Metal music. Baseball? 1 second. Ooh. His whole character comes down to his Boston Red Sox backwards cap that he wears literally to piss New Yorkers off. We're soon introduced to Ralph's wife and daughter, and I am immediately drawn to the question whether Derrickson wanted us to notice these 7 parallels, because I know that in the third act at least one of them or 2 of them will be put into some sort of peril that will end with maybe both of them being killed, but you know, spoiler alert, they're kidnapped. So it's an extremely typical exorcism horror, which takes on conversations like religion between Ralph and our chain-smoking priest, played by Edgar Ramirez, sounds of echoing children's voices, and jump scares only Ralph seems to see, to a goddamn piano playing Pop Goes the Weasel by itself, which seems to be sort of like a callback to when his child sat in her room alone in the dark with a Jack-in-the-Box that she was just winding up. Like, come on, have some respect for yourself. And all of this makes it unremarkable, except for one thing. One truly inspired, insane, and inscrutable decision to have this whole movie be embedded with connotations to the band The Doors being some sort of strange demonic symbol of evil. Each and every possessed character quotes lyrics from Doors songs, such as Break On Through to the Other Side to People Are Strange. This movie feels like it was made by a Catholic boomer for some strange Scared Straight program for kids who listen to rock music, similar to the more successful attempt Trolls 2. So this absolutely absurd injection of The Doors creates an interest in the film, which makes me wonder if its whole point in the story is to make audiences wonder what the hell reviews are going on about when they explain the fact that the main character is being tortured by the song Break On Through to the Other Side in his head in the climactic exorcism, our possessed being played by Sean Harris, but I'll get to that. I must talk first about my favourite scene in the entire movie. This amazing scene goes on for 6.5 minutes, and it shouldn't. It's one of those scenes where like 2 characters get together in a bar or a restaurant and they kind of just explain what's up. Derrickson does this interesting thing with his direction where he just makes the characters keep on talking, and it is so boring. It does, however, start off very excitingly. It made me laugh pretty hard. So our priest is talking about like this Latin text that the possessed people keep on writing everywhere, and he's like explaining that it means like a portal or a gateway. And as soon as he says that, Ralph turns around to this jukebox that has just now started playing Riders on the Storm. You know, he's like, oh, The Doors.
Portal. So these messages, the references to Doors.
Yes.
This movie is perfect. Butler, or Joel McHale, has this inevitable death scene which comes in the form of a knife fight between him and Sean Harris's character. One thing I know about Butler is his weird love of knives. You know, it seems to be his go-to weapon over a gun. You know, it shoots bullets that hurt real bad. Now, I won't deny the entertainment that comes with the knife expert, which seems to be in action films more often than not these days. However, this fight scene takes place in a stairwell, which seems to like have this weird sort of like agonizing motion that I'm like kind of really not behind. His character has this really anticlimactic death. It's so annoying as it's one of the only death scenes in the movie, and it's the only death scene of a character with enough significance for me to actually care. If we're gonna do horror, do it right. The demon guy basically slices Butler's face a little bit. He falls down these stairs, hits the back wall, but not like, you know, Parasite. Just kind of whatever. Guy goes up to him and stabs him in the heart, and that's it. I crave the uncomfortable feeling I got when I was watching Midsommar, but instead I must be contained in this bore fest of cheap jump scares and repetitive motifs. And that really makes me angry at a horror film. Speaking of typical horror movies, they all seem to have this strange obsession with sound effects, which is fair enough. Horror can utilize sound to create a more disturbing atmosphere, or it can do what this film did and layer a bunch of uncomfortable ambience effects, coupled with a screeching sound that is so unbearingly out of place, it made me cringe. This demon in the film also seems to have this like strange obsession with giggling children and static noise, which I guess is torturous for Ralph and disturbing for us. It's hard to really understand the sound department's choices in this movie, but also they were told to insert the doors into background every chance they had, so maybe it was all a real flip off to the producers of this crap. And I like to think it is. Where this film lies in actual enjoyable content is few and far between. There's like a moment where I felt like it had like an edge where it could have continued this strange journey of Ralph and his hatred of cats that seems to be more funny than is horrifying, although I did appreciate the attempt. It begins at a zoo that they go to where he's almost attacked by a lion, where he says, "I hate cats." Then to this family home experiencing paranormal activity in the basement where he meets the family's cat who is scared out of his mind, which he shuts the door on, you know, just being his asshole to cat self, I guess. Which, you know, this end, which is like a trilogy of cat moments where they go into the guy's apartment that they found in the basement, by the way, and they find this like crucified cat with its rib cage shown, like hung on the wall. It's something that could have been scary if it was done right, but it wasn't horrifying or notable enough to be a saving grace of a movie, especially since it only happened in the first act. If you're gonna have a moment like that, you know, carry it on throughout the whole thing. You don't have to make a big deal about it, but there can always be that underlying sort of uncomfortableness with cats that kind of comes out at the end. I don't know if it would have been better that way, but it's just a suggestion. The final exorcism is a fun mishmash of everything that we've learned so far in the film. Ralph gets saved, and when I mean saved, I mean he accepts God into his life and teams up with the priest to defeat the demon. The demon, like all the other demons, quotes the doors and blasts its music into Ralph's mind, like previously mentioned, and a strange shot of a person of colour on the other side of like those glass mirror things you see in all police stations goes like, what the hell, at the two men performing an exorcism in the interrogation room. This whole character that we were introduced to literally 2 minutes earlier in this film feels like he's either some sort of movie self-awareness where they say, we know this is as stupid as you think it is, or is a strange insertion of a stereotype that has passed through generations of movie making, which feels a tad bit racist and insulting, honestly. The best thing this scene has going for in the film is like this transition in the demon where his like wrinkles in his forehead crack open and blood runs down his face. However, this moment goes on like way too long and feels forced for shock horror. You have the close-up and then you have like the reaction shot, and that's kind of basically what you usually do, whereas it kind of lingers on the blood tearing down his face and him going like, ooh, you know, it kind of just, you're kind of like, why? Deliver Us From Evil is a magnificent pile of garbage that was thrown outside of a Doors tribute act's gig. Its premise is littered with predictability and jump scares that add nothing. Interesting but ultimately questionable characters whose quirky wardrobe seems to be their personality, and children's voices that aren't explained or make any sense whatsoever. But please watch this movie. It's so unbelievably stupid, but the fact that someone said, let's boost the horror by making the demon a Doors superfan brings me great pleasure. I hope you enjoyed my first video. I watched that movie one night and it just was so, I was just, you know, face palming the entire time, and I thought I really just need to write a script and tell everybody about it because I haven't heard anyone talk about it. If you enjoyed my analysis of this movie, please like it, share it with your friends, share it with some YouTubers that you know, and yeah, I don't know what else to say, but thanks for watching.